A school shooting rocks North Carolina as we come into the stretch of an election year, and of course it's getting ready to be highly publicized, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Florida has a federal court shoot down most of its election fortification bills, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. The House passes a bill to cap the cost of insulin that's probably not going to go anywhere in the Senate, so we'll go over just a bit of what's happening there. And conservative groups call on the Senate to oppose ideological progressives that are coming from Biden's nominee table. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. Happy Friday. Happy April. By the way, no, there's not going to be any April Fool stuff going on in this program, unfortunately. Everything here is going to be very, very serious because, well, the government's trying to do stuff again. And the mainstream media is trying to tell you what to believe. Again. It's going to be all this and more. We've got, actually, I'm not going to say we've got so much to go over, because as far as programs go, especially on a Friday, this is kind of a light load. We might get almost all of this done here today, but we are going to have to cut off at probably about 9, no matter where we're at right now, because today is the day that we go through the live chat. Again, I issue the challenge. Let's see if we can't get up to like 13 people watching at once. I was looking back through some of the reviews off of there when I was getting the names of everybody who chatted throughout the live week, and we did get to 13. On one day, I believe it was Tuesday, we got to 13. So let's see if we can't get to 14 one day. Tell a friend, tell 10 friends, get some more people in here chatting. And of course, at the end of the program, we're going to read some of the live chat here. So if you're just lurking, make sure you get some messages in there so we can come in and say, hey, thank you, because I appreciate you being here every week. I've got, it's a small group, but you're very loyal. You guys are starting to make friends with each other, which I think is kind of awesome. I read all of your chats throughout the day, so it may not be live on air, but as soon as everything is clicked off, even before I get up and go to work, half the time I just get up and I read what it is that you guys had to say throughout the day, because I'm interested in what it is that you guys say. This is the people's show, so everything that you guys do helps, including when you put stuff in the Discord, when you talk about other topics that are going on in the live chat here. Definitely go and check that out. Our friend Spartan coming over here telling us about a Netflix alternative, but, you know, boomer parents can't figure that out, so I do love my parents, but they can be a little bit tech illiterate. I don't want to criticize them too much off that, though, because they did teach me how to use a spoon. Keep that in mind. So, with that, we're going to get into some of the news. But before we do that, make sure you guys go check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. turnsofpagesproductions.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs, where we will carry great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the Porch Boys, the R-Rated Conservative, a new upcoming project with Britt and Sean Hickman, because no matter what programming Britt puts on, that will be picked up by our network always, because we like Britt over here. Definitely do. So definitely go and check that out. And there will be a new surprise show coming up at launch. And I got to reach out to Brian and see when it's going to be that he's ready for it. But I will be going with Brian Nichols, talking to him about what we plan to do with the network and where we plan to go with that, how we got started, how everything else got started off of that as well, how we will sell something like this, because Brian's big thing is selling liberty and I think breaking the mold of the mainstream networks in a network situation where we can cover more ground because there are 7 programs out there, 8 programs if you count both of mine. With 8 programs, we can cover a lot more ground than just individual podcasters as well. So definitely go and check that out. turnsofpagesproductions.com. And the reason we'll be going on Brian Nichols is because there is going to be a name docs coming up here in the very near future. So check out, for those of you who are in the know, the Give, Send, Go. Help raise some money for Turns of Pages. We are looking for a $2,000 goal to do this. Basically to go and get our friend Bobby Joe paid, who has agreed to put up all the web stuff, all the technical stuff, because even our friend Seawall, who is a wizard with technology, is not necessarily a web developer, and he admitted to that. He's better with hardware than he is with web development, which is fine. We'll go and talk to somebody who this is in her wheelhouse, and we like Bobby Joe. We definitely do, so we're looking at that, and yeah, once the name is out there, because they've got to have full government name up on the front. Once the name is out there, we are going to be going aggressively on getting this out here and getting this going. So definitely go check that out. turnsofpagesproductions.com to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs, because we're just like you. We've had to make some of the same decisions that you've had to make instead of sitting here in suits that cost more than many of your houses. So with that, let's get into the news. Let's start in with the finance here. The Dow took a very significant dip throughout the day yesterday. It dropped another 500 points down to 34,678.35. But as we're looking through here, because this is now April 1st, we're starting into quarter 2 for 2022. The analysis coming out, we're going to start looking at what happened in IBD and what happened in CNBC on the quarter as well. And they're talking about this being one of the worst quarters in 2 years, going all the way back to 2020, with a major dip that dropped us back down to 17,968 at its lowest point in March of 2022. So definitely watch what you're doing. Watch where your stocks are. Watch where your retirement funds are, because that's where a lot of you keep your stocks into. And I mean, just going back and looking at the 6-month chart over here, this is December 31st, 2021, and at that point on the markets we were at 36,338.30, and now we're down to 34,678.35. So almost 2,000 points erased in the first quarter, and it got even lower than that. I mean, down to 32,000 at some point here, but I mean, even going back 6 months to the beginning of quarter 4 in 2020, where I mean, just a touch up from where they were, 351 points up from where we were starting off going into October, and then a climb, and then a drop again. So it sucks to see, especially for those of you who do have money tied up in these markets here. But continuing on, and I mean, just looking into this where this market affects people, because a lot of the leftoids will come out and tell you that the stock, well, when the stock market's going up, they'll tell you, booming economy, booming Dow. But when it's coming back down, especially when it's coming back down under a Democrat president, or when it's going up under a Republican president, it's, well, the stock market doesn't affect any of us regular people. Well, those of you who have a 401k, it does. So that's what we see off of that. Looking in at your Bitcoin, over the last 24 hours, Bitcoin has taken a $429 and 50 US cent drop. That is down just under 1% to $45,098 and 90 US cents per coin. It took a very large digger at about 4 o'clock this morning, local time, and then it's been slowly climbing its way back, so we will see what happens with that and where that goes. Scrap metal has also turned a little bit here. Our markets are much more mixed than they were yesterday. Copper and steel on the main averages are both still up, but aluminum is down. Looking in at the individual plays, bare bright copper wire is down. Number 1 tubing is down. Flashing copper is down. Number 2 tubing is up. Insulated copper wire is up. THHN wire is down. Romex wire is up. Steel conduit is up. Brass is up. Brass shells are up. Light iron is up. Number 1 steels are up. Cast iron is up. Rotors are up. Complete car is up. Shreddable steel is up. But stainless steel is down. On aluminum siding is down. Clean aluminum copper fin is up. Radiators are up. Cans are up. Sheet aluminum is up. Rims are up. Electric motors are up. Ballasts are up. Lead is up. Car and truck batteries are up. The catalytic converter market remains where it was yesterday, with small foreign cat up, but large foreign cat, regular domestic cat, large GM cat, and small GM cat are down. Compressors are up, alternators are up, carbide is up, Hard drives are up, motherboards are up, power supplies, low-grade boards, and PC tower are all down. So, as you're adjusting, finding that scrap around your house, it might be time and worth it to go take some of that in, as we've seen some of this go back onto the downswing again. I do not recommend cutting the catalytic converter off your car unless you know your local emissions requirements and, well, to be frank, know what you're doing. But that's what we see up off of the averages here. Remember, these averages are national averages, and your individual prices at your local markets may change. That's what we see coming up off of that. Let's see what IBD has to say here for the morning. Dow futures, signal market rally, oil drops below $100, GameStop spikes as jobs report looms. From Ed Carson, the oil is going to be the one to watch. A, will it stay under $100 a barrel? And B, what is going to happen with the strategic reserve? And do remember that a lot of the oil was put into the strategic reserve at $34 to $40 a barrel. So that's what we see coming off of that. From Ed Carson, Dow futures rose modestly Friday morning, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. Ahead of the March jobs report, oil prices fell below $100 per barrel. The stock market rally sold off on the close on Thursday, while the crude oil prices plunged as President Brandon announced a major release of U.S. strategic reserves. GameStop said late Thursday that it would seek shareholder approval for a GME stock split following similar plans from Tesla earlier this week. GME stock leapt overnight, while fellow meme stocks, AMC, brought us back up to the top. While fellow meme stocks, AMC and Bed Bath & Beyond also popped. The March jobs report looms large Friday morning. It's a big day for auto sales as well. GM and other big automakers will release U.S. auto sales data Friday morning. China EV makers NIO, Li Auto, and XPeng reported March EV deliveries before the open. Tesla could announce global first quarter deliveries as soon as Friday. AMD tumbled on analyst downgrade, even as rival Nvidia is holding a big recent rebound. The AMD and Nvidia stock charts show the risks and rewards of buying former leaders and breaking steep downtrends. GM will release its first quarter U.S. auto sales on Friday, while Toyota, Stellantis, and others will release U.S. results for March and quarter one. Ford may release its results early next week. Industry sales are likely to be down versus February and off sharply versus March of 2021, as chip woes and other supply chain constraints limit production despite strong demand. Shares of GM, Ford, Toyota, and Stellantis are slightly below their falling 50-day moving averages. And I think a little bit of that is bullshit. I think a little bit more of that, excuse me, is the fact that people are looking at their finances, looking at the fact that their wages have not risen as fast as inflation has, and they're not really getting willing to go up and buy that new vehicle just yet. They kind of want to wait to see what happens with the markets and where this goes, and if the housing market pops and, you know, they lose their house, then they lose their car. You don't want to default on two loans back out at once. So there are a couple things to watch with that, and I mean, I would not be out there to make a big purchase unless it was absolutely necessary. If I smoked the engine, transmission, or rear end of my truck at the same time, it would be the only time I would go out and buy a new vehicle, and even then I wouldn't go with something brand new. I would probably, well, let's see, what's my trend? Buying stuff that's 6 years old? I would probably go out and buy something that is a 2016, I guess. Although that's the aluminum body. I don't like that body that much. I don't know, maybe. I think at this point, the next vehicle that I buy is going to be diesel powered, but you've seen the price of those, so that might be a dream for the far off future. But with that, that's what we see coming up off of that. On the EV sales, Li Auto delivered 11,034 Li 1 hybrid SUVs, up 125% versus a year earlier, and 31% from February. That was the high at the end of the company's implied target of roughly 9,300 and 11,300 vehicles. Li sold 31,716 vehicles for the first quarter. NIO delivered 9,985 vehicles in March, up 38% versus a year earlier, versus implied company targets of 92,000 to 10,200. I'm sorry, that was 9,200, not 92,000. That includes 163 ET7 luxury sedans, which began deliveries on March 28th. NIO delivered 25,768 vehicles in quarter one, with 9,652 in January and 6,131 in February. Excuse me. Xpeng delivered 15,414 EVs in March, up 202% versus a year earlier, and 148% increase versus February. Q1 deliveries hit 34,561 vehicles. That topped company forecast for 33,500 to 34,000 EVs in Q1 and implied March deliveries around 14,600. Li Auto and NIO popped 6% early Friday, signaling returns back above their 50-day moving averages. Xpeng vehicle stock gained 9%. All three China EV makers are well below any possible buy points. My question again is, can you actually buy those here? Or is that just a captive Chinese market? I don't know. U.S.-listed Chinese stocks rebounded generally on Friday, including Alibaba and JD.com, on a Bloomberg report that Beijing is willing to give U.S. auditors full access to more than 200 Chinese companies listed in New York. That would end delisting fears for all but a few U.S.-listed Chinese companies with sensitive data, which means that Beijing walks away scot-free for the coronavirus. Which, of course, Susan, they did not release any specific point to control their aging demographic. That did not happen. This was just a random permutation that came out of a bat soup. All right, let's look into the futures. Dow futures rose 0.6% versus fair value. S&P climbed 0.6% and NASDAQ advanced 0.7%. The 10-year yield jumped 8 points to 2.4%. The 2-year yield climbed to 2.38%, threatening to top the 10-year rate, inverting the yield curve. Crude oil fell to $99 a barrel. Gold and copper prices also retreated. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see coming off of that. A lot of information, a lot of stuff moved as we start into Q2 of 2022. Let's look back at Q1 from CNBC. Dow drops 500 points and the worst quarter for stocks in 2 years, from Jesse Pound and Hannah Meow. Stocks fell for the second straight session on Thursday as traders wrapped up a rocky first quarter for Wall Street. The Dow slid 550.46 points, or 1.56%, to 34,678.35. The S&P dropped 1.57% to 45,30.41, and the NASDAQ was down 1.54% to 14,220.52. Losses deepened in the final hour of trading, and stocks closed at session lows. Thursday marked the last trading day of March and one of the first quarter, which may have contributed to the late day weakness as professional money managers tweak their portfolios for the end of the period. For the first quarter, the Dow and S&P closed down 4.6% and 4.9% respectively. The NASDAQ lost 9%. Geez, well, that's a lot of that's probably chip shortage too, but again, people not wanting to go out and spend the money when they do have the chips, because, well, a GPU is astronomical, although that price has come down. A GPU is absolutely astronomical for right now. The start of rate hiking cycle from the Federal Reserve. For the three major averages, this was the worst period since the first quarter of 2020, which marked the start of the pinko-pox pandemic in the U.S. and saw the S&P 500 tumble 20%. The start of a rate hiking cycle from the Federal Reserve, high inflation, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine all contributed to the struggles for equities for this quarter. March was a bit of a bright spot, however, as the major averages enjoyed a solid 2-week rally on the back half of the month. The S&P and the NASDAQ rose more than 3% in March, while the Dow added 2.2%. There's been a really nice relief rally, partly in the beginning, to look past the invasion, some clarity around central bank actions. We're not looking past the invasion. It's just the U.S. media got fucking sick of it, you morons. Around central bank actions and some technical buying, as there was a lot of money in the sidelines, said Eric Knudsen, the chief investment officer for multi-asset class strategies at Neuberger Berman. But we think from here investors are going to at some point realize, wait a second, growth is slowing and the interest rates are rising and inflation is still high. This is still a challenge set up for equities. Semiconductor and tech hardware stocks came under pressure Thursday amid analyst concerns over PC market going forward. AMD shares slid more than 8% after analysts at Barclays downgraded the stock to equal weight from overweight. Meanwhile, HP and Dell dipped 6.5% and 7.6%, respectively, after being downgraded to equal weight from overweight at Morgan Stanley. Shares of Walgreens Boots Alliance dropped 5%, weighing on the Dow. The pharmacy chain beat estimates for its fiscal second quarter, although that was due in part to demand for pandemic-related products. Banks were another area of weakness, with JP dropping 3% and Goldman shedding 1.6% as the so-called yield curve narrowed. On the data front, core PCE prices, a key inflation measure watched by the Fed, came in at 5.4%, growth year over year for February. That was just below the expectations of 5.5%. The market posted losses Thursday, even as some relief came in the energy front. Oil prices fell, with the West Texas Intermediate figures dropping more than 6% to around $100 a barrel, as President Brandon's admin announced to plan to release 1 million barrels of oil per day from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve for about 6 months. When we look at that, also keep in mind that the oil companies are going to be expected to refill that strategic oil reserve, so that is going to affect your prices coming back in after they stop releasing $1 million a day and after the midterms. So do keep in mind and watch what's happening here. So that's what we see out of the first quarter of 2022 financially. Let's get into the major news of the day, and unfortunately we have to start with some bad news. From ABC 13, 12-year-old shot and killed at Greenville Middle School. 12-year-old suspect arrested. From Brittany Whitehead of WLOS staff. We'll probably watch some of the video of this too, because there's some explanation going here, but let's read first. Greenville County authorities said a 12-year-old student was killed in a shooting Thursday afternoon at a middle school in Greenville, South Carolina. Although the sheriff's office has not released the victim's name, a family liaison who spoke with News 13 confirmed that it was Jamari Cortez Bonaparte Jackson. Just after 1 p.m. Thursday, March 31st, Greenville County Sheriff's Office deputies responded to the scene at Tanglewood Middle School, officials said. The Sheriff's Office said a school resource officer requested emergency backup at 12:23 p.m. after hearing shots fired. Authorities said the shooter ran from the school and a search was initiated. Just before 1:30 p.m., the Sheriff's Office learned the possible suspect was at a residence at the 3000 block of Eastleigh Bridge Road. Deputies found the suspect hiding under a deck. The suspect was taken into custody and a handgun was recovered. So this actually might not get the national attention that I first initially expected, given the fact that by the name, unfortunately, we have to say it looks like the victim might have been black. As far as the perpetrator, we don't know because juveniles under the age of 18. So a name is not going to be released. In fact, the victim's name was also not supposed to be released, but a family liaison said, oh, yeah, no. It was, what was the name? Oh, yeah, it was Jamari. It was definitely Jamari. The 12-year-old was arrested and is being charged with murder, possession of a weapon during a violent crime, possession of a firearm at school property, and lawful possession of a weapon by a person under the age of 18. He was to be transported to the Department of Juvenile Justice in Columbia. In a statement Thursday evening, the Sheriff's Office said the motive for the shooting and how the suspect was able to get possession of the firearm are under investigation. Now, at this point, well, let's read the statement here. We can confirm the victim and the suspect were familiar with each other, and we are confident the incident was isolated, the statement said. There has been talk that the incident was perpetrated because of gang violence. Deputies are not looking for any additional suspects, but it is supposedly retaliatory for gang violence of some sort. Details are still fuzzy at this point. We've got a couple more to look at about this as well, so that is what we will see off that. Let's listen to some of what ABC 13 has to say with this.
Is dead and another is in custody after a shooting today at an upstate middle school. News 13's Samir Nefsi is live in Greenville County. Samir, what's the latest?
Ty, it's a tragic day overall here for the Tanglewood Middle School community. A family liaison has released the name of that middle school student who has since passed. Of course, the Greenville County Sheriff's Department has confirmed the death as well. They've not released the name, but a family liaison, as I mentioned, has. We're now learning the name is Jamiri Jackson, the middle school student that was shot today. The family wrote in a statement saying, quote, "We are all devastated by today's tragedy." Now, it all unfolded around noon today here at the middle school. I'm going to go ahead and step out of the way. Now, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office responded to a call after a resource officer said there was a shooting inside. We've since learned that Jackson was the student that was shot. A suspect has been arrested. We're told that is another middle school student. Law enforcement not releasing the name of that suspect, but they have been arrested and for questioning at this time. Law enforcement has not released if there was a relationship between the two or if they even knew each other or anything that led up to what transpired to that school shooting. Following that, students and staff members were taken to a reunification site at the Brookwood Church, which is about 25 minutes away. Their parents, students, staff members, all still very much rattled by what unfolded today here at the middle school.
And rightly they should be. I mean, regardless, no matter what happens with that, especially when you're dealing with people that young, even if this winds up being completely justified, a defensive maneuver of some sort, which I highly doubt it will, but even if for whatever reason this comes out to be something completely justified, that is still a scary thought that 12-year-olds are resorting back out to this. And yes, the family should be rattled. This is not normal. In the society that's been built, this is not something that 12-year-olds should have to deal with. Let's grab another one here.
Is dead and another is in custody.
Oh, that's the same video we just watched. This is the same video too? No, that's just some drone footage showing the area. So, yeah, that is. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab some more information off of this from Greenville News, a division of USA Today. Student in custody after fatal shooting at Tanglewood Middle School in Greenville, South Carolina. From Catherine Castile, Macon Atkinson, AJ Jackson, and Mike Ellis. A 12-year-old died at Tanglewood Middle School in Greenville Thursday afternoon, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office has confirmed. The student was shot at least once in the 700 wing of the school by another 12-year-old student who has been arrested, according to the statement released by the Sheriff's Office at 6 p.m. The student, now in custody, left the school after the shots were fired and was located at a home in the 3000 block of Easley Bridge Road. According to the Sheriff's Office, he is expected to be charged with murder, possession of a weapon during a violent crime, possession of a firearm on school property, and unlawful possession of a weapon by the person under 18, the Sheriff's Office said. Not a lot more information here, just some photos. The officers in the area. We're not going to be able to see this because of archive. 4:45 p.m., Governor McMaster addressed the Tanglewood shooting. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster tweeted a response to the news in Tanglewood Middle School shooting, saying he did. Is this in South Carolina? I've been saying North Carolina the whole morning, but this is in South Carolina. McMaster tweeted a response to the news of the Tanglewood Middle School shooting, saying he was grateful to the officers and agents who responded quickly to the tragedy and asking for prayers. Students were transported to Brookwood Church in Simpsonville after the incident to be reunited with their family, according to Greenville County Schools spokesperson Tim Waller. Buses lined up outside the school at 1:20 p.m. to transport the students, a few buses at a time. Hundreds of parents were gathered at Brookwood waiting for their children. Each parent was asked to fill out a form with information about the student and provide their ID. Only one parent or guardian was allowed inside the church to pick up their child. At the school Thursday afternoon, Paula Sue Jones said she had no transportation to the church to pick up her grandchildren who were at the students at the school. "We thought it was one of my grandkids that had been shot," said Jones, who was one grandchild in 6th grade and one in 8th grade. "We hadn't been called or notified or anything, and we don't have no way to pick them up." Greenville News has reached out to the school district to ask about options for parents with no transportation. The district released a statement late Thursday to extend condolences to the family of the student killed. Some more information off of this. From WYFF NBC 4. It's just really scary. Mother of Tanglewood Middle School student really reacts to shooting.
All right, we are hearing that our Kylie Jones, who is on the ground near the school, is joining us now live. Kylie, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Nigel, well, we've been on the ground now for a couple minutes now, and I actually have a mom right here with me. She says her child is still in the classroom, the last she's heard. Tell me a little bit about how old is your child and what do you know so far?
My son is 13. He's in the 7th grade, and everything happened in the 7th grade hallway. It happened right in front of his class. He said that right now they're protected. The teacher's protecting them. They're all still inside. They're waiting to get in the bus, but it's just scary.
And I imagine you've just been texting with him this whole time.
Yeah, my son has actually been calling him and everything because I've been so worried, and I keep asking him if he's fine, if he needs anything, just to keep him in his classroom protected in a certain place where they could know that they're protected.
I got to imagine this has got to be a mom's absolute worst nightmare.
Yes, because I just dropped him off this morning. Like I was telling other mothers, I was dropping him off in school, and I told him, I love you, you have a great day. I hope you do good in your test, because they were testing. And then next thing you know is I get a call from another parent say, have you heard? And I'm like, have I heard what? They're like, there's a shooting going on in the school. I'm like, what do you mean? She said, yes, they're shooting as we speak. My son, I was talking to him, and they were shooting as we were speaking. And then her other nephew that goes here to the school called his parent, his dad, and he was trying to tell him that there was a shooting in the school. And so I was heading to Malden, and I had to come back fast. I did not even 10 minutes to get here. Everything was already blocked, but I went through the back roads and everything to get here. They didn't let us go inside, but I was speechless. My stomach is still upset. I just want to see my son and hug him and just make sure that he's fine.
And as a mom, does it make you feel just helpless knowing he's in there?
Yes, it does. It does make me. It's like, like I said, my stomach is really upset. It just gets to me because as a parent, we know what happens in the school. They're always fighting. They're always doing something, and they don't do anything about it. And I wish they could just put like metal detectors so when your child goes in there, they can know, they're middle schoolers. They know what they're doing. So I would love for Greenville counties to do something and put metal detectors as the children. They all come through the same door. They go through the cafeteria, they do that. Why don't they put a metal detector there and then at least detect there's something there? Because supposedly they check schools. How do we know now? I don't even...
And to me, it's still sad, the fact that we've got to prisonify some of these schools that are already very, very much in a prison state. But, as we're starting to see more and more of the society get to the point that it is, and more of these kids get more angsty as they go, I hate to see any of this. I really do. And yeah, it does sound like there is maybe some sort of violence problem here as well. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one more off of this one. So we've heard from the parent. Let's hear what the lawmakers have to say. From CBS 7 WSPA.com, lawmakers react to Tanglewood Middle School shooting, from Robert Cox. South Carolina lawmakers reacted to the school shooting Thursday at a Greenville County school. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office said one student shot another student around 12:30 p.m. at Tanglewood Middle School. The student later died from his injuries. Governor McMaster asked for prayers for those affected by the shooting. I ask that you join Peggy and me this morning in praying for the families, students, and communities affected by this tragic situation, McMaster said in a tweet. McMaster also said he was in contact with Greenville County Sheriff Hobart Lewis and South Carolina Law Enforcement Division Chief Mark Keel regarding the shooting. I've spoken with Sheriff Lewis and SLED Chief Keel about the shooting at Tanglewood Middle School, stated McMaster in the tweet. I am grateful for the officers and agents who responded quickly and admirably to an immensely difficult situation. Senator Tim Scott offered his prayers to the students and families at Tanglewood. Hearing heartbreaking news out of Greenville, said Senator Scott, praying for the students of Tanglewood Middle School and the families affected. Congressman Bill Timmons also tweeted about the shooting, saying that he and his wife were devastated to hear the news from Tanglewood. Our prayers are with the loved ones of the student who just passed away as they face an unthinkable situation, Bill Timmons continued. I know our community will rally behind them and support them in every possible way. So, just a little bit of stuff that goes along with that, and that's, luckily enough, right now we haven't seen a major call for gun control off of this. I'm not sure if that's going to come at this point. Again, this is a handgun, so I think this is probably going to be about the last time we hear about this. I mean, when's the last time we heard about the Michigan shooter? Yeah, you forgot about that one, didn't you? That kid just kind of evaporated into the ether as soon as, you know, it was handgun and nothing else. We haven't heard a word about that since, I don't know, when the fuck did that even happen now? October? Let's look. Well, he has to stay in the adult jail. I can see that crumbly. Let's look and see if the ABC News article actually goes back and reviews to us. November 30th, 2021. And I'm willing to bet we haven't heard anything about this since Christmas. I know I don't remember hearing anything about it, but, well, that's what we see off of that. So, prayers and everything that go out to the family, thoughts with them. It's a tragic situation that they've got to lose somebody from their family so young. It definitely is. I'm not going to sit here and try to say that it isn't. It's definitely a tragic situation. I hope that we can find some peace off of this and, you know, figure out the problems that would cause something like this to happen. ABC News has a gun violence tracker. All right, let's move off of this, though. Let's talk about some of the things that are going on here. And we are going to talk on this one from our friends over at NPR. Citing race, a federal judge strikes down parts of the 2021 Florida election law. This comes to NPR from the Associated Press, but remember, NPR still needs to have their marketing budget to distribute this back out. So make sure you hit that donate button because they need all that extra money that they can get to go and put their communist ideals around the world. Never Printing Reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. A federal judge struck down portions of a Florida election law passed last year, saying in a ruling Thursday that the Republican-led government was using subtle tactics to suppress black voters. The law tightened rules on mailed ballots, drop boxes, and other popular election methods, changes that made it more difficult for black voters who overall have more socioeconomic disadvantages than white voters, U.S. District Judge Mark Walker wrote in his ruling. For the past 20 years, the majority of the Florida legislature has attacked the voting rights of its black constituents, Walker wrote. Given that history, he said, some future election law changes would be subject to court approval. That is an opinion that I would need to see something stacked up against in full evidence. For the past 20 years, the majority of the Florida legislature has attacked the voting... I read that one already. Florida's Republican-led legislature joined several others around the country in passing election reforms after Republican former President Trump made unfounded claims, and this is NPR, so yes, we do have to deal with the progressive bullshit and the editorial. After former President Trump made unfounded claims that the 2020 election was stolen from him, most secure election in history. Honk honk. 81 million votes, 10 scoops of ice cream. Democrats have called such reforms a partisan attempt to keep some voters away from the ballot box. It was only designed to fuel the narrative around the big lie and that the election was stolen from Trump, which it wasn't, of course, Susan. Democrat State Rep Ben Driscoll, who is black, said in a phone interview after the ruling was issued. What we absolutely can't have is a system that I almost feel like is separate and unequal. Making it harder for black people to vote is unconstitutional. Democratic State Rep Ramon Alexander said that he and others argued before the bill was passed that it would disproportionately affect voters of color, and he is glad Walker agreed. Florida has a long history of discrimination at the ballot box, and the bill was just another roadblock put in front of black people trying to cast a legal vote, said Alexander, who is black. Ron DeSantis, who made the election bill a priority, said the state will appeal Walker's decision and win. In front of certain district judges, we know we will lose no matter what because they're not going to follow the law, DeSantis said at a news conference in West Palm Beach. He did not say specifically why he believes the ruling is correct. Another NPR editorial. Upon appeal, the case would go to the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta, Georgia, which is seen as being more conservative. Senator Dennis Baxley, who sponsored the bill, didn't immediately return a voicemail message seeking comment. Much of the debate focused on vote-by-mail ballots and how they are collected and returned. Walker overturned the provision of the law limiting when people could use a drop box to submit their ballot, along with a section prohibiting anyone from engaging with people waiting to vote. Walker said the latter provision discourages groups who give food, water, and other forms of encouragement to voters waiting in long lines from continuing to do so. Yes, because it's electioneering at the ballot box. It's illegal. Kamala Harris broke that law last year. One way, then, to measure whether this provision will have disparate impact on black or Latino voters is to determine whether black or Latino voters are disproportionately likely to wait in line and vote, said Walker, citing testimony that showed that indeed to be the case. Oh, testimony. Walker, who was appointed by former President Barack Obama, also overturned a provision in the law putting new restrictions on groups that register voters, including requiring that people working to register voters submit their names and permanent addresses to the state. Walker ordered that for the next 10 years, any attempt by the legislature to write new laws on the issue he overturned will need court approval. Yeah, and about the first thing that I thought when I heard about this, well, the first thing I thought was, how do I tease John and Midget B? And how do I convince them that this means that Florida is going to turn deep, deep blue by 10 points? Because once they get all the election and the ballots in, then they're going to go back and figure out, oh, okay, this is how many we need to win by 10%. Oh, hey, look, there's this many ballots sitting in a box. They were glued together. We couldn't find them. And now, oh, hey, look, we won by 10%. But the first thing that I thought, and I think Ron went with this as well, is why a federal judge is weighing in on something that, per Article 2, is clearly a state matter. But regardless, he has, in an unfounded opinion, except for the fact, of course, that there was no evidence of election fraud anywhere, Biden is the most popular president in history, more votes than even Barack Obama, 81 million votes, 10 scoops of ice cream, Hong Kong, most secure election in history. But with this, it does look like they went judge shopping. They went shopping for a judge who was going to rule in their favor, and just reading the rulings off of this too. I mean, none of this is based in fact. This is all full-out opinion. This is all my feels. The majority in the Florida legislature has attacked the voting rights of its black constituents. Okay, then why haven't you ruled 20 years ago? Or I don't even know. 9 years ago, when you were appointed by Barack Obama. Why didn't you rule then? But that's what we see off of that. And of course, like I said, it's NPR, so they've got to throw their editorial on this as well. It's an unfounded claim! Well, it is unfounded, of course, because most popular president in history. But that's what we see coming off of that. More election news, more midterms news from NBC News. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey to test federal courts with new proof of citizenship voting rule. From Jane C. Tim. Doug Ducey signed legislation Wednesday reestablishing proof of citizenship voting requirements, setting up a showdown with courts that have said a previous version of the election rule violated federal law. The bill, passed by Republican-controlled legislature, puts the onus on election workers and voters to validate citizenship before a registrant can vote in presidential elections or cast a ballot by mail. This is going straight to the Ninth Circuit, I promise. Election integrity means counting every lawful vote and prohibiting any attempt to illegally cast a vote. Ducey sent a letter Wednesday detailing his support for the bill. The Republican governor argued the measure would address the growing number of registrants who have not provided proof of citizenship to election workers. In 2020, he said there were more than 11,000 voters who had not provided proof of citizenship, which is of course Susan false because most secure election history, 10 scoops of ice cream, honk honk. President Brandon won Arizona by less than 11,000 votes. Most voters in Arizona vote by mail. Alex Gulata, Arizona State Director at All Voting is Local, countered the new law will disenfranchise eligible voters and is based on debunked conspiracy theories. Well, if they're eligible, that means that they're citizens. How would it disenfranchise them? This bill will mean that some people who are already clearly allowed to vote and are authorized to vote will not be able to exercise their right to vote, he told NBC News, and it's being done based on lies and conspiracy theories that have been completely debunked. Yep, 10 scoops of ice cream, completely debunked. The big lie. Most popular president in history, honk honk. Arizona Republicans have repeatedly questioned the integrity of the 2020 presidential election, despite broad evidence showing the results were accurate and secure. Most popular president in history, honk honk, state Senate Republicans orchestrated and discredited partisan ballot review in Maricopa County in 2021 and have considered a number of restrictive election bills this year. The new voting law is scheduled to take effect before the November midterm elections. Critics of the legislation and the State House of Representatives Rules attorneys said in a testimony before lawmakers that the bill would violate the National Voter Registration Act, which says voters must be able to register for federal elections using only a federal form, one that asks voters to swear under penalty of perjury that they are citizens but does not require documentary proof. So, we will see what happens. And like I said, that one is going straight to the Ninth Circuit. The liberals in Arizona have already talked to the Ninth Circuit and said, hey, we need you to strike this down. Can you do that for us? Can you do that, please? So we'll see what happens with that. All right. So I have mixed feelings on this one here, this next one coming up here, because, well, the House did exactly what I told them to do. Now, I've read the bill because I wanted to know more about this one because this is exactly what I told the House to do. And I don't necessarily care for the way that this is done out, but they have put their money where their mouth is. And now we can ridicule Republican senators, or representatives rather, not senators. Now we can ridicule Republican representatives because this has been divorced from the Build Back Bullshit bill. Now they are, and for all intents and purposes, this is a single-line bill. For all intents and purposes, this is not a pork barrel spend. This is not throw a bunch of pet projects in with this, which I was very impressed by. But from the Hill, House passes bill to cap the cost of insulin. From Nathaniel Weichsel. The House on Thursday passed legislation to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month, a move that would significantly lower the price of the life-saving drug for more than 7 million patients. The bill passed on a party line vote, 232 to 193. First and foremost, that number is bullshit. It will not affect 7 million diabetic patients, because most of them already pay lower on copay. Between copay and what their insurance says, most of them are already paying lower than the $35 this cap's at. So no, this does not affect 7 million patients. This does affect some patients. The bill passed on a mostly party line vote, 232 to 193. The measure was authored by 3 House Democrats facing competitive re-election races this fall: Angie Craig, Dan Kildee, and Lucy McBeth. Under this bill, Medicare beneficiaries would pay no more than $35 for each 30-day insulin prescription. Cross-sharing for beneficiaries and private plans would be limited to the lesser of either $35, 25% of the health plan's negotiated price for a 30-day prescription. The insulin cap was originally part of the sweeping health reforms in Democrats' Build Back Bullshit legislation, including limited Medicare drug negotiation. But Manchin's opposition to the legislation put the larger bill on ice. Democrats carved out the insulin provision as a standalone vote, as a way to get a tangible victory on an issue of major importance to Americans. Make no mistake, I continue to strongly support comprehensive efforts to rein in the soaring cost of prescription drugs and empowering Medicare to negotiate fair prices, but we cannot afford to wait any longer to address the price of insulin, Frank Pallone Jr. of New Jersey said on the House floor. Far too many Americans are struggling to afford this drug, and it's time for Congress to say enough is enough. But while it would save the consumers thousands of dollars at the pharmacy, the bill does not lower the overall price of insulin, nor can it, because you still have to deal with the cost of putting into the insulin and the labor to do so. The government can't just price control that stuff. That is, by the way, the same reason you have never seen the invoice for the Pinko Pox jab. Because they don't want you to know how much it costs and how much more the government is paying for it. Because the government is the single payer for this. Honk honk. And then, Pfizer shows a record profit and, hey, I like what you're doing here, politician. I'm going to donate this to you. Thank you for passing the provisions that made the jab mandatory, or attempted to make the jab mandatory. And thank you for buying all these doses of the jab. Republicans latched on to that idea, accusing Democrats of socialist price controls that would allow pharmacy benefit managers to hide savings from patients. They did not fault manufacturers for setting the high list prices. Bipartisan congressional investigations have faulted both pharmacy benefit managers and drug companies for the soaring price of insulin. Insulin has long been targeted by lawmakers as an example of a broken incentive in the U.S. health system. The drug hasn't changed much since it was first discovered more than 100 years ago, and as newer forms of the drug have been introduced, the price has climbed. Across the Capitol, a bill from Warnock would also implement an out-of-pocket cap on insulin at $35 per month. But in an effort to gain Republican support, it may be combined with bipartisan legislation from Jean Shaheen of New Hampshire and Susan Collins of Maine that seeks to lower the underlying cost of insulin through a yet-to-be-defined process. Yet to be defined because they don't have fucking shit. So, with that, and like I said, this was a major poison pill that was put into the Build Back Bullshit agenda so they can come out and say, in spite of the fact of the trillions of dollars worth of pork barrel spending that's in there, they can all focus on the one side of this of, see, Republicans, they just want to make your cost of insulin go higher. Now, with that provision being said, I don't know that the Senate Democrats are going to allow this to go because they need to have that advertisement coming into midterms. This is purely political. And yes, for the 193 Republicans who, I usually, doing this, reading the news, analyzing politics today, it is really hard to play team sports. But I typically, on average, side with Republicans more often than I side with Democrats. But at this point, this gives me a reason to go back and tell you how much of a bunch of jack-offs these Republicans are. Because I said, okay, well, if the insulin thing is really important to you, I've said that since the beginning, divorce it from the Build Back Bullshit bill and put it in on a single line bill, which they have done. And we'll look into some of this stuff. Now, looking at the bill itself, the way that it's written, and I've got the full text here, I'll put it in the chat and I'll put it in the Discord as well. The way the bill is written, essentially, this works only for Medicare and people on the government exchanges, the healthcare exchanges, which is really the only thing that House Democrats can control, which may be a part of the opposition from Republicans, because, and that's why I said at the beginning of the article there that the 7 million number is fucking bullshit. Now, do keep in mind that a large number of plans that are coming from group employers do fall under the exchanges, but not all of them. So no, this is not affecting all 7 million diabetes patients in this country. The first line of the Hill article is full out bullshit. Straight out. Full on, full out. But this doesn't affect the majority of people. Medicare patients and healthcare exchange patients are the ones who are affected by this. So there are some things, and again, I don't know that, especially with the White House trying desperately to get their Build Back Bullshit plan passed, I would almost expect Biden to veto this, but pocket veto it so it doesn't get public, what's the word I'm looking for? Public views. Throw it in his pocket, just forget to sign the thing, and then come back and keep it in the Build Back Bullshit plan. And then try to get that passed again. Then remind everybody that, oh, evil Ted Cruz and evil Josh Hawley and evil Joe Manchin, they don't want you to have cheap insulin. But yeah, that's the bill. It's in the chat. Go ahead and check that out. I'll also put it in the Discord for you guys if you want it there. I'll tweet it out too if you really want me to. But that's what we see off of that. All right, what else do we have? Speaking of things that happened in the House, Bob Good got a zinger in on Nancy Pelosi. It didn't change anything. It didn't affect anything. It was just really fucking funny.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Person Speaker. And I say Person Speaker because I'm not a biologist, and out of respect to our Supreme Court nominee, I don't feel qualified to say Madam Speaker. But I do rise in opposition to this.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Person Speaker. And I say Person Speaker because I'm not a biologist, and out of respect to our Supreme Court nominee, I don't feel qualified to say Madam.
Thank you, Person Speaker. In fact, why is it that the person announced, which I don't know what the name of the person who announces who's recognized, but why is it that that person is not saying the gentle person is recognized? Is she a biologist? All right. We're going to do some Ukraine stuff. Well, I know, it's Ukraine. We do it every day, and nothing has changed for like a week and a half. But there is some stuff we've got to touch on here. From CNBC, Russia needs to show success at home to justify the war in Ukraine. From Abigail Ng. Russia still will want some form of victory before backing down from the war in Ukraine. An escalation in the war is still possible at this point, political analyst told CNBC. Even if Moscow is genuine about its pledge to reduce military activity near Kiev, it's likely to regroup and focus on the Donbas region, where they have seen some headway, they said. The Donbas is a breakaway region in eastern Ukraine, which comprises two pro-Russian self-proclaimed republics, Donetsk and Luhansk, following Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea from Ukraine in 2014. Russian-backed separatists in the region broke away from the Ukrainian government. The Russians are stronger in the east and may be wanting to reposition forces in the east to achieve a victory, because right now the Ukrainians and the international community see Russia more as a loser than a winner, said William Courtney, an adjunct senior fellow at RAND Corporation. Russia likely expected a quick victory when it invaded on February 24th. Instead, there has been fierce resistance from the Ukrainians, and Moscow is still struggling to gain ground after more than a month of fighting. Moscow's announcement that it would cut back military activity around Ukraine's capital has been met with skepticism. Chris Miller from Tufts told CNBC that he saw Russia's pledge to scale back forces from Kiev as merely a statement of the military reality and a distraction from the fact that the real fighting is happening in the east. The Ukrainians have pushed them back somewhat, but the bulk of the fighting over the next couple weeks is going to take place, I think, not in Kiev, but in the Donbas and eastern Ukraine, he said on Wednesday. Russia's in the final stages of the siege of Mariupol on the coast of the Donbas and is trying more generally to grab a big chunk of territory from Ukrainian forces, said Miller, an assistant professor at the International History at Tufts. It's just trying to grab enough territory to package it as a success at home and justify the cost of this war, he told Squawk Box Asia, adding that the cost was far higher than anyone in the Russian government or the Russian populace expected. Matt Sussex, adjunct professor at Griffin University, echoed the same sentiment. An escalation is still very much possible because Putin needs a win before he will agree to deal with Ukraine, he told CNBC on Thursday. So, that's what the experts are trying to tell you to believe about the Ukraine. That's what they're trying to make you believe, but of course, this war has been so propagandized from the right, from the left, from the media, from the Chans, from everywhere else that, as I've said from the top, I don't really know what's going on, and neither do you. As much as you're going to try to tell me, and I do see somebody who may disagree with us ideologically, as much as you're going to try to tell me that you absolutely know what's going on there because CNN told you so, you don't. Unless you are on the ground over there, you're getting propaganda from both sides. Let's see what else. Sky News has one from us here. Where's Mad Cow Mark? Mad Cow Mark loves it when I use Sky News. Ukraine war. Putin's advisors afraid to tell the truth as Russian troops accidentally shoot down their own aircraft, spy chief says. From Deb Haynes. Demoralized Russian soldiers in Ukraine have accidentally shot down their own aircraft, sabotaged by their own kit, and refused to carry out orders, a British spy chief has revealed. Jeremy Fleming, the head of GCHQ, said President Putin's advisors are afraid to tell him the truth about how badly things are going. In a rare public speech in Thursday in Australia, the senior intelligence officer also said, Wagner Group, the private military company with suspected links to the Kremlin, is understood to be prepared to send large numbers of personnel into Ukraine to fight alongside the Russians. Wagner mercenaries would likely be used as cannon fodder to try to limit Russian military losses. There are indications that Russian cyber attackers are looking for targets in the country that oppose Moscow's actions. The British intervention comes as the U.S. official also said accurate information about Russia's failures on the battlefield is not making its way to President Putin because his senior advisors are too afraid to tell him the truth. This included not letting him know his military was using conscripts in Ukraine, the official said. Sir Jeremy made similar remarks in his speech at the Australian National University in Canberra. It increasingly looks like Putin has massively misjudged the situation in Ukraine, he said. He listed these missteps as misjudging the Ukrainian resistance, underestimating the strength of the Western response, underplaying the economic consequences, and overestimating the abilities of his military to secure a quick victory. Which, yes, and I think most of us expected that just to be a fucking steamroll right from the beginning. And then NATO would have the justification to go back in and kick ass and take names, but that hasn't been this now, and there's been speculation that this is just a sending out the weak and the sick to go back out and use them as cannon fodder to weaken down the Ukrainian forces, which actually makes sense. I mean, when I play StarCraft, that's what I do. I throw the Marines in first, and then at the end of it, throw the Reapers and the Marauders in, and go clean up what's left after all my Marines are dead. That's a savvy strategy, but there's also the fact that, as they said, some soldiers are refusing to carry out orders. There are some people out there, and I mean, right since the beginning, since before March, we've been hearing talk about the fact that, oh, well, hey, when we go back and look at this, when we see at this, these Russian soldiers are looking at this and saying, oh, well, we don't know what to do. We don't know who to shoot at. These people look just like us. If they put different patch on arm, we don't know if they are ours or if they are theirs. This is not like Afghanistan. So, some of the things to see with that and some of the things that we go, here is a map of some of the military action going there and some of the claimed territory, it looks like. There's no legend to this map, so I'm not sure what all the colors mean, but kind of just looking over here, and Crimea, obviously, looks like it's annexed. It looks like Kherson might be annexed at this point, and the Donbass region, and then possibly some territory coming back up off the top. But what the brighter color here means, and the blue is probably water. And this here, I'm not sure, because they didn't give me a legend. But that's what we see off of that. From the Blaze. Top U.S. general publicly contradicts controversial statement Biden made about American troops in Poland. From Chris Enlow. General Todd Wolters, commander of the U.S. European Command, publicly contradicted President Brandon on Tuesday. Biden sowed international confusion last week when he appeared to tell soldiers with the 82nd Airborne that they were headed to Ukraine. You're going to see when you're... Oh, wait, no, that's Biden. You're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people, standing in the middle and in front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving, I'm holding my ground, Biden said. The White House was forced to clarify Biden's comments, reiterating that U.S. troops were not going to Ukraine, but Biden caused further confusion on Monday when he was asked to personally clarify his comment, and he said that American troops are training Ukrainian soldiers in Poland. I was talking to the troops. We were talking about helping train the Ukrainian troops that are in Poland, Biden said, then adding, I was referring to being with and talking with the Ukrainian troops that are in Poland. While testifying before the Armed Services Committee, Tom Cotton asked Wolters about Biden's claim. Wolters said that liaisons are being given advice, presumably by American personnel, but Wolters clarified that American troops are not training Ukrainian soldiers, as Biden suggested. And see, this thing here, this is why I say you've been propagandized to so much that you don't know what's going on over there. I can assure you of that because, well, to be fair, it doesn't seem like they know what's going on over there. Let's listen to a little bit of this.
The president said while he was in Europe that we are training Ukrainian forces in Poland. Is that accurate?
At this time, is that the time setting of the statement?
That's what the president said. Jake Sullivan said we are not. I'm just trying to figure out if we are or are not.
I do not believe that we are in the process of currently training military forces from Ukraine and Poland. There are liaisons that are there that are being given advice, and that's different than I think you're referring to with respect to training.
A few weeks ago, President Zelensky asked for the transfer of MiG-29 aircraft from Poland. The Secretary of State said that we gave a green light to that. 2 days later, the Pentagon said it was untenable because they were afraid that it would be escalatory. Were you asked for your best military advice about this decision? And if so, what was it?
I was, and I provided that best military advice to the Secretary of Defense. And if Secretary Austin would like to share that with you, I know that he will.
Can you help me understand how it would be escalatory to provide these aircraft?
So, yeah, they don't even know what's going on here. And they're trying to come back and walk that back, and the next time you ask Biden about it, he's going to say, no, I said what I said, man, come on. I'm glad that my image is over here in the corner, and you can't see the ad that's going on in the corner right now. Because it's pretty disturbing. And apparently, the economy created, Hong Kong, 431,000 jobs, bringing employment down to 3.6%. That is according to the president. But that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one from CNBC. U.S. sends 100 killer drones called Switchblades to Ukraine. From Amanda Macias. The U.S. included 100 killer drones in a colossal weapons package for Ukraine that President Biden approved earlier this month, U.S. officials confirmed on Wednesday. Celeste Wallander, Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs, told lawmakers that Kiev asked for the weapons, which are dubbed kamikaze drones, as it fights off Russian invasions. We have committed 100 Switchblade tactical unmanned aerial systems to be delivered in the most recent package of presidential drawdown, Wallander said in a testimony before the House Armed Services Committee. We've heard the Ukrainians and we take that request very seriously, she said. Spokesman John Kirby told reporters last week that the drones would arrive in Ukraine soon. He declined to elaborate further. The decision to equip Ukraine with killer drones, dubbed the Switchblade, follows Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's request to U.S. lawmakers for additional military equipment. Deploying Switchblades to the fight in Ukraine could be the most significant use of the weapons in combat, as it's not clear how often the U.S. military has used the killer drones on the battlefield. AeroVironment, who just made a significant donation to congressional Democrats and Republicans and the presidency, the U.S.-based firm that manufactures the weapon, declined to comment on the arms transfer. Shocked. Let's go escalate this a little bit further. From The Hill. Zelensky, 2 Ukrainian generals dismissed for being traitors. From Joseph Choi. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced on Tuesday that 2 of his country's top security officials have been dismissed from their roles as generals for being traitors. Regarding anti-heroes, now, I do not have time to deal with all traitors, but gradually they will all be punished, Zelensky said in a speech. Yeah, punished. If they're actually traitors like you say, they've got a brand new, lush apartment in Mercedes waiting for them in Moscow. Yeah, you don't have time for that. This is why ex-chief of Main Department of Internal Security of Security Service of Ukraine, Naumal Andrei Olekhovich, and former head of Office of Security Service of Ukraine in Kherson region, Voruchko Sergei Alexandrovich, are no longer generals, he said. Zelensky did not elaborate on what had led to the 2 officials being dismissed, though he noted that under Ukrainian Army's disciplinary statute, officers who have not decided what their homeland is, who violate the military oath of allegiance to the Ukrainian people as regards the protection of our state, its freedom and independence, would inevitably be deprived of senior military ranks. I don't know, it sounds to me at this point like they came out and said, hey, maybe it's time to compromise. We're beating them back. Now it's time to have some more talks and maybe not kill so many more people so they're so pissed anymore, and actually have a talk with them. And they got lambasted for their efforts. From the New York Post. Deadly Russian sniper captured by Ukraine after she was left for dead. From Tariq Tahir. A female Russian sniper with 40 kills to her name was captured after being abandoned on a battlefield, it was reported. Irina Stadikova, whose call sign is Bagheera, is said to have told her captors that she was left to die after being wounded in a battle with Ukrainian troops. According to Peacemaker Center, which researches crimes committed by Russian separatists at the Ukraine war, she is 41 years old. She also has 2 daughters, aged 11 and 9, and is divorced from their father, Alexander Fedotov. Starikova served with the forces of Russian separatist Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine, which has been fighting the government in Kiev since 2014. Her capture was announced by the Ukrainian armed forces, who said she shot our prisoners in 2014, alongside pictures of her. It was also confirmed by Georgi Revishvili, a researcher at the Department of War Studies at King's College London. He tweeted, "Ukrainian forces have captured infamous sniper fighting on site of Ordlo, call sign Bagira," referring to the name Kiev gives to the breakaway Russian-speaking regions. Revishvili added reportedly she is responsible for killing 40 Ukrainians, including civilians. Well, she sounds charming. So I wonder what's going to happen to her as they go along. Well, that'll be interesting to watch and see. Kidnapped mayor. Ukrainian mayor says Russian soldiers who kidnapped him knew nothing about his country. From Eleanor Beardsley. Yeah, I'm sure they didn't. Because again, I'm sure that they weren't putting the top guys out on the front line. They were putting the cannon fodder out there. From Eleanor Beardsley, and this again comes to us from our friends over at NPR, so make sure that if you didn't hit that donate button before, they need your money, I mean our money, comrade, to never print reality again. To convince you that you need the government and the government needs you. So make sure you donate our money, comrade, to the cause, because otherwise the evil Republicans might win and pass voting reforms. NPR, National Progressive Radio. The 33-year-old mayor of the Ukrainian town of Melitopol was kidnapped by Russian forces in early March and held for 5 days. Now, Ivan Fedorov is in France to bear witness to his town's occupation by the Russians, and he says the soldiers who interrogated him knew nothing about the town or the Ukraine. Fedorov appeared on French television, BFM TV, to describe what his town has been living through. The boyish-looking mayor said his town in the southern Zaporizhzhia region woke up to war on February 24th when missiles struck a military airport just a few hundred yards from some apartment buildings. He said Russian forces are becoming increasingly aggressive because their plans for a lightning war didn't work out, and his town's resistance made them angry. They saw that the citizens were not welcoming them. To the contrary, people have only been opposing the aggressor, Fedorov said. Citizens have been coming out, thousands at a time, in plazas and streets, despite armed soldiers, and yelling, "Leave our town! I am amazed by their courage," he said. On March 11th, Russian forces put black bag over Fedorov's head and took him away from Melitopol's crisis center, where he was working, and the scene was caught on surveillance camera. Fedorov says he was held in a prison cell without his phone and unable to contact his parents. He told BFM interviewer Bruce Toussaint that he could hear people screaming as they were tortured in other cells. Fedorov said he was interrogated by 5 Russian soldiers who were completely unprepared and knew nothing about Melitopol or Ukraine. They wanted to liberate town from Nazis, and where were they? And I told them, in my 30 years in town, I've never seen single Nazi, Fedorov said. He said that after that, the soldiers told him they wanted to defend the Russian language. I told them 95% of us speak Russian already. Nobody's stopping us, and there's no problem, Fedorov said. After that, they told Fedorov that they'd heard that veterans of World War II were beaten during the last commemoration day. Yeah, and again, I don't believe they put their best out on the front lines. Doesn't sound like a very, very, very Putin thing to do. But that's what we see off of that. All right, let's shift gears here. Let's come back to domestic policy. Let's grab one from the New York Post. Maxine Waters warns reporter over LA homeless story. You'll hurt yourself! From Kelly Pattison. Maxine Waters tried to stop the publication of a news story about LA homeless crisis this week, reportedly telling an LA Times scribe, "You'll hurt yourself in the community. You're trying to put this together." The Wednesday story by investigative reporter Connor Sheets detailed a March 25th incident in South LA where hundreds of homeless people tried to obtain Section 8 housing vouchers after being misled by social media rumors. The would-be applicants crashed an event held by nonprofit advocacy group Fathers and Mothers Who Care, which was meant to help the unhoused obtain emergency shelter. The confusion reportedly overwhelmed the nonprofit as well as Los Angeles Housing Services Authority, LAHSA workers who told the unexpected arrivals that they would only be able to provide their information and enter an emergency housing database. At one point, Waters told the crowd, "I want everyone to go home," triggering an angry response. Let's listen to that.
Wilson. Another location where they're taking abs. Is there any more locations than this one?
No, it might have been. There's so many people out here.
One minute.
I want everybody to go home. And I want
We don't got no home. Okay. That's why we here. Miss Waters, where home we gonna go to?
Yeah. Just a moment.
Just a moment.
Nothing is going to happen here today. Nothing is going to happen anymore today.
What about these names?
What we're gonna? Well, that's what. Give me.
Well, can you leave Can you leave?
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. And so I will be downtown with Lassa. I will get the housing authority. That's why they came out here today. I made them come out here. And I'm going to go.
And you need to know why they're failing, because Blanca Jimenez repeated, we gave her several meeting requests for you concerning this in Lassa for years.
Well,
and now they're sitting
there's
here.
nobody in Washington who works for their people in a harder than I do.
I believe you.
I don't want to hear that.
I believe you. So can we finish though? Work with me.
No.
Work with me so we can house people. That's what I'm doing.
I do every day.
What you do every day? I'm still on a damn
the
street.
money that you got in Washington, D.C. I will continue to work. I will get it. I will no more vouchers today.
They would never know vouchers.
Well, I guess my first question here is it possible at all to get a flattering angle of Maxine Waters? Because whenever anybody takes a video of her, it's always from like down here, looking up into her, whatever she's wearing, usually the mask up on her face, but the glasses and the goggles that she had on during the St. George riots in Minneapolis, when she was calling for first-degree murder. But yeah, I mean, that in itself shows the out of touch of a California politician at a homeless event in front of a crowd of people who are asking for vouchers because they're homeless. Everybody just go home. Thank you, Auntie Maxine. "We don't got no home. That's why we're here," one member of the crowd yelled back, according to the LA Times. "What home are we going to go to?" And of course, "I don't want to fucking hear it. Nobody works harder in Washington for the homeless than I do." So, yes. There is Maxine Waters telling a group of homeless people to go home. From the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. Facebook paid GOP firm to malign TikTok. This is a WAPO exclusive, so take that for what you will. From Taylor Lorenz and Drew Harwell. Facebook parent company Meta is paying one of the biggest Republican consulting firms in the country to orchestrate a nationwide campaign seeking to turn the public against TikTok. The campaign includes placing op-eds and letters to the editor in major regional news outlets promoting dubious stories about alleged TikTok trends that actually originated on Facebook, and pushing to draw political reporters and local politicians into helping take down its biggest competitor. These bare-knuckle tactics, long commonplace in the world of politics, have become increasingly noticeable within the tech industry, where companies vie for cultural relevance and come at a time when Facebook is under pressure to win back young users. Employees with the firm Targeted Victory worked to undermine TikTok through a nationwide media and lobbying campaign portraying the fastest-growing app owned by the Beijing-based company ByteDance as a danger to American children and society, according to internal emails shared with the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. Targeted Victory needs to get the message out that while Meta is currently the punching bag, TikTok is the real threat, especially as a foreign-owned app that is the #1 in sharing data that young teens are using, a director for the firm wrote in a February email. Campaign operatives were also encouraged to use TikTok's prominence as a way to deflect from Meta's own privacy and antitrust concerns. Bonus points if we can fit this into a broader message that the current bills or proposals aren't where state attorneys general or members of Congress should be focused, a Targeted Victory staffer wrote. Well, even if that's true, I'm not going to still use TikTok. Just plain and simple. Seems pointless. And everybody who uses TikTok anyway goes and reposts their TikTok to a reel on Instagram, which has its own problems, don't get me wrong. Or they post it out to their Twitter. They post it so many other places that I don't need to go back out and get TikTok, because I can find all the same content anywhere else that I want. Besides, it's completely botted anyway. From The Hill. Mick Mulvaney is hired by CBS. From Dominic Mastrangelo. Mick Mulvaney, a former Republican congressman from South Carolina and a top aide to former President Trump, has been hired by CBS to serve as a contributor, the network announced this week. Mulvaney appeared on CBS's streaming service for the first time on Tuesday and was asked about President Brandon's recent budget proposal, the framework for which was revealed on Monday. It really is a very different way of measuring wealth in this country, Mulvaney said of Biden's plan to raise taxes on households worth more than $100 million. We've never taxed wealth before, we've taxed income. In fact, the Constitution might even allow for a property tax, or might not even allow for a property tax. But that's the basic framework. We'll find out how much money you've got on things like unrealized stock gains, businesses that you might own, and even though you don't make money off of that last year, we're still going to tax you on it. That's the basis of the proposal. A fiscal hawk during his years in government, Mulvaney was the director of the Office of Budget Management during the Trump admin before being tapped to serve as Trump's acting chief of staff. Since leaving the admin, the Republican has blasted his former boss for his assertions about the totally free and fair election, his role in the selfie fest, and predicated that Republicans are likely to move on from Trump in coming elections. No, we will definitely go back to being boring fucking neocons who dance whenever the Democrats tell us to dance. But there you go. That's your newest CBS contributor. All right. Is there anything else that we want to get to? Let's grab this one, because I haven't listened to this yet, but I've been told that it's word vomit. VP Harris, one of the issues that has been presented as an issue in this economy is the way its impact has been in the pandemic. We will assist Jamaica in a COVID recovery by assisting in terms of recovery efforts in Jamaica that have been essential.
We also recognize, just as it has been in the United States for Jamaica, one of the issues that has been presented as an issue that is economic in the way of its impact has been the pandemic. So to that end, we are announcing today also that we will assist Jamaica in COVID recovery by assisting in terms of the recovery efforts in Jamaica that have been essential to, I believe, what is necessary to strengthen not only the issue of public health, but also the economy.
Anybody translate that for me? Anybody help me out with that? It's hard to imagine a worse public speaker than Joe Biden. Let's do this one, then we'll do live chat. And then we'll head out of here for the day. So the last one we'll do today comes to us from The Blaze. Biden unveils new plan to punish oil companies for gas crisis he blames on Putin. From Chris Enlow. President Biden is asking Congress to punish oil companies for allegedly placing profits over oil production. The allegations are the latest developments in Biden's total abdication of any responsibility for the gas price crisis. Energy experts say the Biden admin's hostile policies are playing some role in the crisis, but the White House blames Russian President Vladimir Putin and oil companies. While Russia's invasion of the Ukraine undoubtedly shook the oil market, the White House has blamed oil companies for not using as many as 9,000 approved oil leases. White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead was making that claim before the war. In an announcement, the White House pushed blame for the gas crisis on oil companies, claiming they're putting profits over production. Too many companies are doing their part and are choosing to make extraordinary profits without making additional investments to help with supply, the White House said in a statement. To stop oil companies from their alleged profiteering, Biden wants Congress to impose fees on companies for not using approved leases. President Biden is calling on Congress to make companies pay fees on wells from their leases that they haven't used in years and on acres of public land that they are holding without producing, the statement said. Companies that are producing from their leased acres and existing wells will not face higher fees, the White House continued, but companies that continue to sit on non-producing acres will have to choose whether to start producing or pay a fee for each idled well and unused acre. Which came out to this, by the way. Let me grab this tweet. I had it up in... Yeah, there it is. I had it up in the Discord. Which led our friends over to Occupy Democrats, who, for whatever reason, come to the top of my Twitter feed every motherfucking day. Breaking. President Biden slams oil and gas companies for artificially driving up prices. Calls for a use it or lose it policy to stop them from sitting on their 9,000 unused drilling permits. Which, that's not true. That's their unused leases. By charging fees for idle wells on federal leases. Retweet if you support Biden's idea. Well, again, first and foremost, lower the regulations, of course. Get rid of some of the other fees that go along with everything else off of this. And all you're doing right now is just making the price of gas higher and abdicating the fact that you have come out to stop new leases, new exploratory drilling. And the EPA has made it almost impossible to get a new drilling permit. So that's what we see off of that. All right, and with that, I think we're going to call it on the news. So with that, we are going to check in with some of the live chat here. So let's scroll back up to the top and see what you guys are doing. It's been very busy today, so I don't think we're going to get all of the live chat from this morning because I think it's going to cut off at the beginning. Yes it is. So let's read some of this to get started. We're close to the top, but not all the way to the top. Ron Helton says the judge is a moron. Young, impressionable minds should not be exposed to the twisted ideas when they're that young. Randy says, is it too late to say no homo? Ron Helton says, the government loves you. April Fools. Randy says, I must have missed it. Did some judge block the don't say straight bill? Ron says, you had spoons as a kid? Damn, you must have been from a rich family. Randy says, pro tip, if you have an Amazon Fire Stick and multiple streaming services, when looking for a movie, search in the Amazon search. It will tell you if any of your streaming services has that movie streaming right now. Then you can click it and will automatically go to that app and that movie. And yes, that is even apps other than Amazon. I've seen that before. I've tried it before because that's how I watched Sister Act, which I saw for the first time like last month. No, 2 months ago in February. I first saw that movie for the first time. And that movie is probably 30 years old at this point. But definitely. And I want to go through and see the Indiana Jones movies. I want to sit down and watch all the Bond movies. So that'll be something that's coming up here. And we will check in with that and see if we can catch up with the chat now. But checking in with who we saw throughout the week here. On Monday, we had Quest Fanning, Ron Helton, Spartan 0000 Superior 1, Arbolt, Randy Crush Saga, Mad Cow Mark, KTZed, and McConnell Smuggles Coke. On Tuesday, we had Quest Fanning, Ron Helton, Spartan 0000 Superior 1, Sully Blue, Randy Crush Saga, Arbolt, Woofy Productions, Highleaf, and KTZed. And I don't know if my Twitch is populating either, by the way, because I know I've seen A. Gaines' name in the chat, but I didn't see him show up on any of these. So I did add him on Thursday as well, because I know that he's been active in there as well. And sometimes the Restream bot, when they come back out and compile the names of the chatters, doesn't like to pick one streaming service or another from time to time. On Wednesday, it was D-Live for a long time. On Wednesday, we had Quest Fanning, Spartan, Sully Blue, Mad Cow Mark, Carbs, Ron, Arbolt, MK Ultra, and Wolf336. Yesterday gave us Ron Helton, Quest Fanning, Spartan, Terry Berry, Arbolt, Chilaga, Sully Blue, Randy Crush Saga, and A. Gaines P. Although it must have been pulling from Twitch because that's pretty much exclusively what Randy chats on, and he's been on there every day. So I don't know. It's weird. Let's see. What else are we doing here today? Randy says unrealized gains tax is going to affect the average 401k owner. Yes, and the average homeowner too, by the way. Ron has an older LCD Samsung in this back room. I don't have smart TV. I want to add some to stream Tubi, Pluto, etc. Well, if you can stand Amazon, the Fire Stick does work for that. Because that's what I have. Because I bought my first flat screen TV in 2015 at the urging of my ex-girlfriend. It's 32-inch. It's in the bedroom over there. And then I've got this 24-inch that I'm using as the main monitor here. And then I cheaped out on the two on the side, and those two are Insignia monitors. But none of the TVs in here are smart TVs. Not a single one of them are smart TVs. And I've got the Fire Stick and the TV in the bedroom. Ron Helton says, I read an article that Dr. Ron Paul delivered Selena Perez, the singer. You guys too young to remember her? I remember the movie. I don't know anything about Selena Perez as the singer, but I remember the movie. Because a girl that I dated in college had a half-Mexican younger sister who watched that movie every day because she thought that was how she was going to learn her cultural heritage. She literally sat down and watched that movie every day. Randy says, yes, that's Selena they made the movie about. Yes. I saw that article too. I didn't put it on the stack because I knew we were going to be running up on time, but yes, I did see that. Apparently Ron was living in Houston when she was murdered. I didn't know she was murdered. I've never seen that movie. Surprise. Ron says she had a great voice. She was almost 24 when she died. She was really popular back in the day. Randy says, I don't even know what a Neo is. Neo is the one born in the Matrix to me. Well, it's N-I-O. It's a Chinese EV manufacturer, but I don't think they sell them here. I think they are exclusively to China. China. Ron says, foreign cars have to meet minimum safety standards. There was one from China years ago that could not be sold here. So, yeah, I'm guessing they don't sell them here. Don't remember the name. A YouTuber did a video on it. Randy, remember how hard the media fought it being labeled the bat flu? It's like they learned from the swine flu and the bird flu that people don't take that type of name seriously. Ron, so not the flu and not the monkey herpes. Herpes. A disease that Brooklyners were happy about because it gave them something else to mispronounce. Hoipies. They haven't had a disease like that since tuberculosis. Ron says if the government would stop meddling, the markets will return to normal. But the governments can't do that. They need to get their cut. KTZed is here. Good morning, friends. I will yawn if I need to. I will yawn if I need to. Get some coffee and get your shit together. Bang energy, kids. Randy says no hate crime charge. Does that mean the youngster wasn't white? Don't know. Ron says scary for the parents. So there's a violence problem here? It sounds like it. It sounds like this is a regular thing. Randy says, I've asked this before, but couldn't people carry ceramic knives through the metal detector? It would probably get picked up for the, like the blade wouldn't get picked up, but like the hardware for it would. The screws and such. It's people like her want to bubble wrap the world that made it where teachers can't effectively enforce discipline. The teachers' unions are fine with that, but they draw the line at not being able to groom children. Gaines is here and says clearly it's the guns and not the little crotch goblins that did the crime. Randy says Sandy Hook was handguns until people asked why the call to ban AR-15s, and all of a sudden the rifles that were seen being pulled out of the trunk of his car were used in the shooting. Randy, I can't read that because I've already got one strike from YouTube for that. I read that one from Ron while it was still active. Randy says, all claims of secure election aside, the left only has the Senate due to bribing Georgian voters in the runoff. Arvolt is here. It says it's one of those days. F in the chat for Arvolt. Randy says, DeSantis said it before. The legislation gets shot down in lower courts and then they win the appeals because it all checks out. Randy says, Hawaii has aligned the welfare office for people who aren't legal citizens. This just reminded me of that. Imagine a separate line for the people who are getting welfare while not being citizens. Spartan is here. Says most people should not be allowed to vote. Low IQ voters outvote those who are smart and moral. Ron Helton says, how are they restricted? They're ensuring that people are eligible to vote, not preventing them from voting. Have to show ID for just about everything else in this dystopian nightmare? Well, yes, but they can't go to several other districts and vote again and again and again, remember? Kevin99GH with the Yoshi face. Randy says, imagine quoting that federal law and thinking it sounds legit. People like to claim that because licenses and IDs cost money, they create an unlawful barrier to entry to voting. Simple. We paid hundreds of billions out for COVID. Simple issue. Free IDs if they're a state that doesn't already. Problem solved. Randy says insulin is one of the drugs that's probably not overpriced. Matt Kalmark is here. Wouldn't be surprised to find out they make pennies off of it. Fanning's here. Didn't see the notification. I tweeted it. And he tweeted it too, by the way. Thank you, Fanning. Randy says diabetes has grown exponentially and we're subsidizing the cost for lower prices in other countries that people like to point to. Apparently insulin costs $3 a unit to make. Spartan says, make it illegal for employers to purchase health insurance for their employees. That way the actual there's actual competition and allow cross-state sales of their health insurance. No taxes for doctors, clinics, and hospitals as long as they promise to do some charity health work. Make it illegal? No, because I don't like making anything illegal, but no tax for doctors, I like that. Randy says, you might be able to claim that the oldest variation that you wouldn't be allowed to be distributed in America is cheap to make, but a suit $3. Oops, I didn't mean to send that. That's why it don't make sense. That vial, $3 vial, cost comes from a study after a biosimilar was allowed that uses massive estimations. The reasons insulin is not disproportionately overpriced due to the FDA regulations around it being considered a biosimilar, Medicare, Medicaid, causing healthcare prices to triple so that they can accept 40% and still put their money on exponential growth of diabetes. Ron doesn't think that the steamroller thing was accurate. Randy says, guys, it's okay when we fire on a building with civilians in it that people are firing from. It's super bad when Russia does it. Ron says the Ukrainians are using their own civilians as shields. Ron Helton doesn't like Tom Cotton. I'm shocked. Completely shocked. Excuse me. Ron says, Ukrainians are not winning. You don't negotiate for peace when opposing armies deep inside your country. If you are winning, they can't win. Harvey McLeod is here. Happy Fools in April. Apparently she told her parents that she was moving to, back to California in June. Maxine Waters is the Wicked Witch of the West, says Jesse Lee Peterson, according to Harvey McLeod. Arbold says Maxine Waters is the model for Dark Crystal Moon Witch. Oops. Rubbing the chair into the wall, it's making hell of a racket. Randy, oh, the irony. She's being confronted by the masses. They're pushing back on her, almost like she shouldn't have been called on people to harass Congress people. Randy Crush Saga says, homelessness for a single person is very easily solved. Get a job at Walmart and a fast food restaurant. Work as many hours as you can. You can get a cheap meal while at a fast food place. You can keep on your hygiene from working at Walmart. Since you don't have a home, you've got no reason to not be Employee of the Month. Not long doing this, you'll accrue enough money to not be homeless. Sedvacantis says, Kamala looks hunter-wrecked. Randy says, hard to imagine a worse public speaker than Biden. Harris, we did it, Joe. Let's see. Chilaga says Kamala is the next president. Randy says, according to Joe, multiple times, and Jill at least once, Kamala is the president. Sedvacantis says, bartender for that cunt for a year in San Francisco, and Gavin Newsom. Willie Brown Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Steny Hoyer, and all demon class agents. I had to clean up some of the names. Randy says, it's just as much the don't say straight bill as the don't say gay bill. Harvey McLeod says, long live Ron. Sedvacantis says, doctors, in parentheses, heroes. Ron Helton says, I hope Ron Paul lives a long time. And that is going to be it for live chat for the morning here. Wow, it's not 9:45 and we're not getting out of here. So, I guess let's close out the week. All right, so with that, we're going to head out of here for the week. Oh, outro music, outro music. Although I like the Besaid music from Final Fantasy X. Or Spira, I'm sorry. Not Besaid. But we always close out in the same music. So thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, came and hung out with us, kept me on point, kept me honest, kept me going here, and everybody else who hung out in the week. There will probably be a Fallout 4 stream coming up this weekend, times to be determined, so watch the Twitter and the Discord for that. As we go along with that, definitely hope to see you guys there, and come and hang out with us on Monday for more Contemporary, where we talk about the little bit of leftover here. We don't have a whole lot this week, but the little bit of leftover that we have over here, plus everything that happens up over the weekend here. I do have some vacation time that is going to be coming in the very near future, because I need to do something different on a side hustle. So definitely come back and join us for that as well. That is going to be some time. Probably have a few longer shows throughout here, but I do want to keep it tight because I do want to focus on what I will be doing for vacation. I will most likely be home for that. So it's going to be like nothing's changed for you guys, but after I get done, I won't be rushing off to go to work. I will be rushing off to sit down and do some more studying. So come back and hang out for that. Times to be determined as well, so definitely come back. Otherwise, we will see you here next time. Fallout 4 stream this weekend, time to be determined. Possibly drunk, because, you know, that's what I do. Monday morning, Contemporary News and Headlines. Monday afternoon, KTZed Redemption, where we'll be talking about Ukraine. We'll be talking about this new budget proposal, the gas prices, the gas leases, and everything else that happened throughout the week. Probably the school shooting, probably some of these midterm bills. Lots of stuff to go over here as the markets change and as the political winds change as we go into this. And stick around if you're over on Twitch, because we are going rating. And we will see you next time over here on Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.